You see it, the perfect moment unfolding right in front of you. You raise your camera, and then you freeze. Your hands shake, someone looks at you, you pretend to photograph the building instead. The moment is gone, and you walk away wondering why this is so damn hard. Hi, it's Peter here, and let's get right into the business. I've been shooting quite a long time street photography. I had a 10-year break. I used to do it like 20 years ago quite a bit, and then I picked it up again like 3-4 years ago and been doing that for 2 years really, really intensively. And I've experienced all those moments that are just making the street photography so hard. In this video, I will give you 7 things that will help you a lot overcome these feelings and barriers that we all experience more or less every time we go out and shoot, but you can overcome them. Fear of confrontation and self-consciousness. But this is something that happens to all of us many, many times when we go out and photograph. And sometimes we just cannot do anything about it. And let's face it, don't worry about it too much. Just start shooting something different if you feel anxiety of people or you're afraid to photograph people in the open space, in the public space. Just start to photograph something that doesn't include a human, maybe a traces of humans. And that's something that will help you a lot going forward on that particular photo walk. And then next time you go out, you might feel a little bit different and you might be ready for photographing some people. And the confrontations, I've had only a few in my whole career while I've been photographing street. Just a few times, and I've been done that quite a lot. So most times people do not care. Of course, that may vary depending on where you live and where you photograph. But in general, I've noticed that most people do not care unless they don't feel threatened in any ways. If you nod and smile if they see you, and if they ask you what you're doing, just tell honestly what you're doing, maybe showing the image, and if they say that, oh, that came out nice, maybe ask their email and send the image to them and build trust in that way too. And always be out in the open when photographing. Don't hide or try to be like a peeping Tom type photographer that uses a long lens and steals the images and all that. I do have a video about how to be invisible out in the open space that you might want to watch after this video or after you have watched this video. I'll put a link in the description of this video too, so you don't have to click that unless you already did, but then you're not here. But let's continue to the next one. Getting close and creating impact. Many struggle to get physically close enough to subject, resulting in less dramatic, less engaging images. It takes both courage, like we talked in the previous tip, that it takes some courage to go close. But once you handle that and you can get closer, your images will have a lot more impact. And this is something that I've been struggling lately because I kind of try to respect the privacy of people and don't want to photograph like I used to do 20 years ago. Maybe I was younger then and now I'm a bit older and maybe I'm more considerate towards people in the streets. I'm not that harsh anymore. And sometimes I just want to leave people alone. I don't photograph people in bad situations or anything like that. I might photograph someone who looks interesting because it sticks out with the clothes or color of the coats or some characteristics on the person's face or something that might make me interested in that person or in the way that I will want to photograph. And yeah, you need to practice this. It takes practice to get into this. And as I said in the first tip, that start with an easier subject like non-human approach, so that you photograph something, street scenes but not really urban landscape, something between, and try to make something out of that, and then gradually introduce people in your photographs if you feel anxiety. That way you will get more impact in your photographs. At least I think that having a person with some kind of suggestion, clue or impression on the face makes the image a lot more interesting. And the third one, technical challenges, timing, focus, and settings. Things in the streets happens really fast. And if you are too keen on setting every time different shutter speeds, different apertures, different ISOs, and all these different settings that the cameras are packed, then you will miss the situation. So try to think the technical things, very simple. What I use, I've said this many times, but still people are puzzled when I say this, that I use P mode and auto ISO, and I've limited the auto ISO up to 6400, 3200, depends on the situation. And I also have the shutter speed fast, or the slowest shutter speed is 1/125 of a second. That's why, or that's how I can stop the motion. So, and then I will have the depth of field priority in my Ricoh GR3x, which I mainly use for my street work. That makes me free of even focusing, because I use small aperture. The depth of field is quite big, and the shutter speed will be quite fast. So most of the action is freezed, so I can get a sharp image, and then it will raise up the ISO. I don't care if the image have a little too much noise in them. I don't really care. Sometimes it's a nice character, and if there is too much noise, I can always use DxO Puro 5 if I need to get rid of the noise. But don't get obsessed over the technical things. Don't overthink the settings of your camera. And then that will improve your timing, because you don't have to think that much. And, underexposing stopper 2 usually doesn't really matter if you have a relatively new camera. And then, it doesn't really matter. You can lift up the shadows, slightly underexposed. So just make the image and worry about it later. That's my take on for this particular tip. Then we might feel that we have no control over the scenes. And that's true. And that's also something that we might get a little bit down when we're photographing. Something interesting happens, and then somebody photobombs the image, or they move to a wrong direction and they're not there where you think they are. You're fishing some image, you see a nice scene, and then you want someone to walk in there, but then when someone comes, and then there is another person, and everything kind of falls apart. It takes some patience, and what you have to understand is that the situation is like it is. You can't control where people move and walk, and that's part of the whole point in street photography, that you don't interfere what's happening in the streets when you're photographing. You photograph things that would happen without you being there. And I think that's the main essence in street photography. Of course, if you want to take, staged portraits out in the streets of strangers, that's also considered to be street photography. But I think still the essence is an outside observer on the street when you're photographing. That's the way I feel right now. But that philosophy might change in the future. I don't know. But that's the way I feel now. I like to document things as they happen without me interfering at all what's going on the streets. That's a kind of a classical way and a little old-fashioned way, I know, but that's how I feel. And then there is the one thing that is maybe not the biggest, but one of the biggest thing is the overwhelm from too many options. What to photograph? Sometimes restricting yourself makes a photograph a lot easier. One reason for me to have a small camera and one lens, it's a compact camera, Ricoh GR3x, is that I don't have the options to think about the focal lengths or anything like that. So I don't, need to change lenses, and now I need wide angle and the next image I need to telephoto. That has made my photography a lot better when I don't have to think. There's one thing out of the equation. I just, see things like a 40mm lens, and I concentrate on those things. Then I see a lot more. But then we have all these options. Should I photograph busy railway station, like hundreds of people? Who should I photograph and all that? And that is something. But just narrowing down, maybe have I will photograph everybody with the red coat. And you start seeing red coats all over the place, except here in Helsinki that much. But anyways, you know what I mean. Pick a subject or a thing that you start to photograph, and that will narrow you down, and you will start seeing other things while you photograph. And that method works for me really well, so that I concentrate on, okay, today I'm going to photograph people in escalators. It's something that makes my starting to photograph a lot easier. And then also, if you have photographs in your mind from your archives, try to replicate them or make photos that goes well with them. But then there is the biggest thing that we have to understand that makes our street photography so hard. And that's the fact that high rate of failure and discouragement. 95% of us fail during our photo walk. Yes, that's a harsh truth, but most of the time we do not get the images that we want. And of course, it's up to your standards which ones you kind of accept. But once you get more and more experienced, the more and more you learn that how hard it is and I just can't do this. But if you think that 95% of us street photographers fail in our photo walks, that's the way it is. So don't be discouraged if you don't get anything. Just a few keepers. One keeper from a couple of hours or 1 day of photo walk is a good result. The more you walk out there, the more times you go out and photograph, the higher rate of keepers you will get for that year. So if you go out and photograph for 10 days or every month once, you probably will have 12 images, 10 to 12 maybe. It depends. But don't let that sink in and discourage you. It's just a true truth and a fact. Dealing with spontaneity and patience. And this is something that we have to think about is the struggle between balancing this. Should I be a spontaneous and photograph really fast, like hunting technique all over the place, which might give me some results because, as I said, the more you photograph, the more chances you have to get that good photograph. But on the other hand, what about the patient? If you're using the fishing technique, you need to be patient, and also patient because you might fail 95% of the cases of the times. You need to be patient to get that keeper. So it's also balancing that, and understanding that balance will help you a lot. I know this is a little bit advanced idea, but think about, do you want to be spontaneous or you want to be patient, and how to combine these two things. What I usually do is that I incorporate both fishing techniques and hunting technique. Sometimes I see a window with nice reflections, then it's about hunting. I just wait for someone to walk into the proper place, someone who has some characteristics that I like for that particular image. But sometimes I see someone, then I need to be spontaneous and photograph that. Because sometimes things happen really fast. And that is the biggest kind of like a revelation also for me to accept that we need to shift our mind really quickly between our photographs. We might have something like hunting technique and then all of a sudden we need to hunt. And when you can kind of like set your mind to do both, then you will be more successful. But it takes practice, and what I suggest for you to do is to go out and photograph and keep your equipment minimal. Take your camera, what you have, even your phone is totally fine for that. Remember all these tips that I had and the solutions for you to become more successful in your street photography. And you might want to watch that, How to Be Invisible, to help you to overcome the anxiety and the encouragement and the being afraid of confronting with people or seeing people in the streets. But hey, thanks for watching and bye for now.